Fight for a traitor. Die like a traitor. Monster! How is this possible?
My God, this black guy's so strong! It's because of his superior African genetics. This is not a racist game. It's not racist. Dude, oh my, this is, what the fuck? Stop Asian hate now! Stop it! This is like the Reddit wet dream right here. Remember when my wife's boyfriend killed all the Japanese people? Why do I keep doing this to myself? I think Assassin's Creed has completely and utterly lost its identity at this point. I know you could say that going all the way back to like Black Flag, but at least Assassin's Creed 4 is a really fun game. Obviously, the series has been drifting away from historical accuracy for over a decade, and I'm not going to say that was ever my biggest concern personally. I know people really like to cite the story of how the crossbow was removed from Assassin's Creed 1 since they didn't exist in the time period. But we've known for a long time now that Ubisoft doesn't really care about that stuff anymore. I mean, there's just straight up fantasy monsters in Assassin's Creed now, and there has been since like all the way back to Origins at least. So my main concern is not historical accuracy at all with this review. No, it's the fact that this is one of the most blatantly racist games that has ever existed. And now, that might sound weird coming from me, if you know the type of content I've produced on this channel before. And it's not inherently the idea that you're genociding Japanese people as a black guy that bothers me. This is one of the most unintentionally funny games I've played in a while, at least when you finally get to play as Yasuke, which other than the 30-minute opening sequence is something like 10 hours into the game, which is absolutely intentional, by the way, to try and mitigate some of the backlash against this. Though I don't think it really worked. Judging by the player numbers, I don't think anyone gives a fuck about this game. And yes, I know Ubisoft claims there's like 2 million players already, but how many of those are through Ubisoft Plus, which is just a subscription service? All you have to pay is like $15 a month to get access to all their games, so you could just subscribe for 1 month and then unsubscribe when you're done with this game. I've already done that several times before in the past, but ironically, I completely forgot about it with this game. So yes, they actually got the $70 out of me. But somehow, even with my foolish mistake, I don't think Ubisoft is going to make the money back on this game. I know there's a lot of Black Pill Doomer types that say, well, Assassin's Creed is ultimate normie slop, just like Call of Duty. There's always going to be like 10 to 15 million people who buy every one of these games. In fact, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is the highest selling game in the series, which is insane given how utterly mediocre that game was. But given the massive amount of controversy, the low Steam player counts, the fact that even the YouTube critic types who usually shill a bunch of modern games are also saying this is just mediocre. So there's not a doubt in my mind that Ubisoft is going to lose money on this. The real question is it going to be the final nail in the coffin? Are they finally going to go bankrupt? And right on time, as I'm editing this, Ubisoft just announced that they're starting a subsidiary that's being funded in large part by Tencent. So while it's not exactly the result we were hoping for, it does kind of show how Ubisoft is really hurting financially right now, and maybe Shadows isn't as big of a success as they would have you believe. So now China has a direct say in how Ubisoft makes their games. I imagine this can only turn out well for the gamer. And I realize I'm sort of already derailing this review in the intro because, truth be told, there's actually not that much to talk about. If you've played Assassin's Creed Odyssey or Valhalla, you know what to expect here already. It's just another copy-paste job. And I understand that Assassin's Creed is an entire series of copy-paste jobs, but if we're talking about games that are carbon copies of one another, that are each at least 50 hours long, and although I only ended up playing this for like 15 hours, and yeah, you know, maybe some of you might think that's not quite enough time, but trust me, I could already tell there was nothing more to see. Plus, this game makes one major mistake with the grinding that in some ways makes it even more insufferable than previous ones in the series. But with games like this, they feel that much more repetitive when you play multiples of them. If we're talking about something like Assassin's Creed 1, 2, Brotherhood, Revelations, 3, those games are probably, like 15 to 20 hours each? After putting a significant amount of time into both Odyssey and Valhalla, I'm already done with this discount Witcher 3 clone sub-series, however you'd like to refer to this as. Ironically, I far preferred Assassin's Creed Mirage, despite it being even less polished than a lot of Ubisoft's other games, just because it actually kind of played like old Assassin's Creed games, and it was much shorter. So with this review, this is going to be a lot more off the cuff than usual because honestly, I needed a break from editing that 4-hour-long video that I wasted a month of my life on. Well, I guess waste is the wrong word because a lot of you guys really enjoy it as one of the best like-dislike ratios of my videos in years. But for the near future, we're going to go back to the standard style, and I'll make a really long video if it's necessary on a game that's actually worth talking about, not this. I think all of you guys are here to just hear about Yasuke culturally enriching Japan, and don't worry, we get quite a bit of that. So without further ado, here's Assassin's Creed Shadows. So, let's start with the gameplay first. Like I said in the intro already, this is just Odyssey and Valhalla all over again. These are very lazy button-mashy action RPGs, where the RPG mechanics themselves actually just make the game worse in every conceivable way, but for some reason, normies still really like these. The combat mechanics is super simple. You got a light attack, you got a heavy attack, you can charge those attacks up, you can dodge attacks, you can parry. You've got 4 special abilities per weapon type that you can activate by using up one of these little diamonds that you build up by hitting enemies or dodging and parrying. You've also got tools that you can use in the middle of combat, though for the most part that's reserved for Naue. And Yasuke has a bunch of different weapon types he can choose from that play slightly differently. And honestly, that's pretty much it for the combat. I just described the entire thing. This combat is just so fucking button mashy, and the enemies are spongy as hell, especially if they're just 1 or 2 levels higher than you. They probably take 6 or 7 hits each. I don't even really want to talk about the gear system. Again, it's exactly the same as Odyssey and Valhalla. And because there's such a significant difference between individual levels, you're never really going to grow attached to a piece of gear. Now, I believe you can upgrade gear, but I never bothered engaging with that because I just hate the resource systems in these games. Because you're required to do so much busy work to get the money, to get like the wood or the metal or the stone, all that stuff. There's a fucking base that you have to upgrade. And all this stuff doesn't really enhance the core gameplay experience, they're just distractions. Though that's Ubisoft games in a nutshell. It's just a series of distractions and chores. The glue holding together the whole experience is just the mediocre combat, which I'm not gonna lie to you, I think playing as Yasuke was actually kind of fun. If only because Naue feels weirdly underpowered. The whole unique gimmick of this game is that you have these 2 characters to choose from. Naue's the assassin, and Yasuke's just a black guy. So naturally, Yasuke is the more powerful character in every way. The weird thing is, I feel like on paper, it's not the worst idea in the world to have one character have a much more diverse moveset and abilities and tools to use, with the downside being that she's not that great at the actual combat. But the thing is, I don't think the stealth is very fun in this game. It has the same exact problem as, again, the last several games in this series, where if a target is like a boss-type enemy, or is a few levels higher than you, then you can't assassinate him. It just does a chunk of their health, and then you have to fight them normally. If a stealth kill doesn't work, and then you get discovered, then I feel like I'm wasting my breath even describing why that sucks. I think it's obvious to anybody that that's terrible. Your ninja tools feel nerfed as well. The kunais are clearly supposed to be your go-to throwing knife that you throw into somebody's head and kill them from afar. But every target that you would actually want to kill with the kunais can take the blow just fine, because even if you aim for the head, their armor health bar just absorbs the blow, and then your cover is blown immediately. You also get shurikens too, which I basically only got access to toward the end of my gameplay, but from what I saw with the stats, they're more useful as an environmental interactive throwable than actually for killing people. I guess you can toss them out in the middle of combat as a quick throw, but why would I even bother doing any of that when Yasuke can kill enemies like twice as fast? This motherfucker can kick a giant dude flying 50 feet backward, which again is fucking awesome. I'm not gonna lie to you. I like the over-the-top stupid anime shit. It's just that Assassin's Creed is supposed to be realistic. If I can kick a 7-foot-tall guy flying off of a cliff, then why can't I fight demons and like dragons and evil ghosts and shit? Why are we even pretending that this series is supposed to be realistic anymore? It just makes it more boring. 2 out of 3 of Naue's weapon types feel so basic as well. The katana is a katana. It does katana things. The Tanto has absolutely terrible hit detection, or maybe realistic hit detection, because there's not enough sliding. There is sliding when you attack, don't get me wrong, but there's not enough for the first hit to make contact if you're standing like more than 5 feet away from an enemy. So you'll actually just fucking miss with your tiny ass little dagger several times, and it just feels fucking useless. Why would I ever use that? So that leaves the third weapon, the chain sickle, which I actually thought was kind of fun, because you can grab enemies and pull them into each other or pull them toward you. So it actually has a little bit of a unique play style, at least. But even then, you have to understand that you have to use skill points to unlock abilities with each individual weapon type. And while the game does give out a shit ton if you're doing like assassination objectives, it's still not quite enough, where you feel like you literally have to save up skill points just to try out a new weapon type, which makes the already tedious game even more tedious. So if I had to sum up Naue, I would just say, I guess if you like the old style of Assassin's Creed gameplay, you might enjoy playing as her, except the actual stealth is still nerfed by the terrible RPG system. And even then, it's not like she has any unique abilities. A lot of her basic-ass skills that we've gotten used to in previous games are locked away behind a different progression system, which I'll cover in a moment after we get through Yasuke. But it never felt like stealth was as powerful as simply running into a group of enemies with Yasuke and chopping them to pieces. All it did was slow the game down, which honestly I think is definitely intentional by the devs. And look, obviously stealth is always going to be slower than just slicing people up. But what doesn't help this is the fact that the AI is fucking brain dead, just like all of Ubisoft's other games. The difference is it's actually worse than old games in the series. Despite the fact that basically every enemy in the game can throw rocks at you and a bunch of enemies have guns, I had no problem simply just outrunning enemies and then climbing a building. That's another thing too, enemies can't climb buildings. And I realized that probably over half the Assassin's Creed games, enemies can't climb buildings. But famously, all the way back in the first game, they could chase after you to rooftops. Not in this one. All you have to do to lose enemy line of sight is climb on a building and lay prone. They're not even fast enough to shoot you while you're climbing up the building anymore. This game requires no skill at all. I mean, like none. Zero. And that is no more apparent than when you start playing as Yasuke more seriously about 10 hours in. So if Naue's the assassin, Yasuke is the samurai tank. And oh boy, I could see the game devs salivating at the mouth with the opportunity to show how Yasuke's BBC could dominate the fucking tiny yellow people. I wish I could say it just extended to the gameplay, but no, it goes to the writing as well. The developers of this game definitely are fucking complete degenerate cucks, without a doubt. So Yasuke is basically just better than Naue, period. Yes, he has a lot fewer abilities. He can't even really climb buildings. But what he can do is slice through enemies twice as fast. I mean, legitimately, he does at least 50% more damage than Naue. He also breaks blocks super easily just by spamming the fucking R1 button. He can kick people flying like 50 feet backward, even giant enemies. And Yasuke has more than twice as much health as Naue as well. Look at how much damage these attacks are doing. It's practically nothing. And he gets 5 healing items instead of 3 as well. Why the hell would you ever play as Naue? I guess if you just really like stealth, but you don't even need stealth. There were multiple story missions where I literally just ran past the enemies and triggered the next cutscene, and then boom, it didn't even matter, I got discovered. I've heard some people say that Naue was definitely the more fun character to play as, but maybe just because I played so many of these Assassin's Creed games, it's actually refreshing to just be able to like dunk on these people so easily. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the older Assassin's Creed games where you could just like counter insta-kill everyone. Another over-the-top thing about Yasuke is he can just Kool-Aid Man straight through wooden doors, and he can bash enemies by just running into them. I mean, this shit is a legitimate power fantasy. If it didn't feel like Ubisoft wanted to start Asian hate and wipe out the Japanese population, I honestly would say that this is a pretty fun and unique experience for Assassin's Creed anyway. Like, and I know this sounds cringe, but it definitely feels like there's a kind of subtle, maybe not so subtle, element of hatred even down to the very gameplay. One of the basic executions for Yasuke is just ritually decapitating someone, like straight into the fucking camera.
She wished only to escape them with Goro.
Dude, I can't get over this, man. Like, this is... Can you imagine if this is a game about, like, Nazis executing, like, I don't know, Jews, black people, gays, whatever. And I'm sure you've seen that one before because people were spreading it around a lot when this controversy started. But when you use the naginata, aka the glaive, there's an execution where you chop both of someone's arms off and then their head. Are we supposed to believe Yasuke's a good guy? Another weird creative decision as well has to do with the world simulation. As you probably know in previous Assassin's Creed games, if you killed 3 people back to back, you'd get a game over. Well, in this game, you're not even allowed to kill one. If you kill one guy, load checkpoint. And for some reason, you can't even kill local wildlife. Like, if you try to attack a deer, it doesn't seem to do anything. But then on the other hand, if you see a servant in an enemy base, they're not considered innocent. Do you know how many random-ass women that I've just killed and there's no consequences in this game? It's actually kind of insane. Like, that's some serious ludo-narrative distance right there. But anyway, back to the gameplay. Now that you understand the basics of the playable characters, we'll talk about the enemies briefly. The reason I say briefly is because, once again, same enemy types you've been fighting in all these other games. There's only 3 attack types, that being a basic attack that you could parry or dodge, blue attacks, which are a flurry of attacks, and red attacks, which are unblockable. If you parry a normal attack or every hit in the flurry of attacks, it makes the enemy vulnerable, which means they take more damage for a short amount of time. And if you dodge an unblockable, it also puts the enemy in a vulnerable state. And that's pretty much everything you need to know. The enemy attacks flash right before when you're supposed to parry, so it's not like you have to memorize attack patterns, you just have to be patient. And if we're being realistic, there's only about 3 enemy types. If you're being generous, I guess you could say there's 1 enemy type each for every weapon type. But considering you fight most of those enemies the same way, I really think it's only 3. That being the basic enemy type, the ranged enemy type, and the boss enemy type. And that's it. That's all you're going to be fighting for probably like 50 hours straight. The gameplay never changes or improves. I suppose the player unlocks new abilities over time to make it even easier. But now's about the time that we should probably talk about the progression. Like I said, there's leveling up. If an enemy is a few levels higher than you, then it's going to take a year to kill them. And the entire world has level scaling, so you don't even get the satisfaction of like one-shotting weaker enemies to show how far you've come. No. We can't have that. No, the enemies are always at least equally as strong as you. Which, you know what, that would be bad enough in and of itself, but for some reason, progression in this game is gated behind doing sandbox activities. I absolutely hate that more than anything. I feel like this game would almost be playable, not recommendable, but playable if you weren't forced to do sandbox activities, but you are. You have to get knowledge points by praying at shrines or doing flashback sequences with one of the 2 characters, collecting pages, stuff like that that normally should be completely optional. Maybe just give you a little EXP or a little loot. No. You have to do them to unlock the next tier of abilities in your skill tree. I can't even believe this shit. The game just forces you to waste time. And the worst part is, by the time I finally was allowed to play as Yasuke again, I didn't want to play as Naue anymore, but several of these activities can only be completed with her because, like I said before, Yasuke can't really climb. Contrary to popular belief, black people don't have hops, at least not in full armor anyway. So you have to switch to Naue to get some of these knowledge points, since the lost pages are like located on top of buildings sometimes. The same goes for eagle points as well. A lot of them are just simply not possible to get on top of with Yasuke. But can he sink? He's not an assassin. Okay. Alright, sure. You don't need to be an assassin to synchronize at the fucking eagle points. And if you've played a Ubisoft game, I shouldn't have to explain why you'd want to climb the towers. It's something we've been forced to do in all of their games. Well, what about the level design or lack thereof? It's another giant empty sandbox, like all of their games. Despite being, you know, at least 3 times as large as it should be, there's honestly not that many side quests. Unless you count taking out random assassination targets as proper side quests, which I don't. No, I wouldn't be shocked if about a quarter of the total side quests in this game were tied to romance in some fashion. And while I didn't personally end up completing any of the romance side quests, I did want you to know that, yes, Yasuke has 2 gay romances, in fact. One of which is with a, I guess, non-binary male. Might as well just call it an ugly femboy. And this is also where you've seen this meme format come from. I gotta admire the balls on Ubisoft for doing this shit. They know how fucked up this is, and they don't care. And as you would expect, Naue also has a lesbian option. Man, these romances just suck. They're fucking repulsive. That's just the best way to put it. Again, it just adds to that feeling of parody, when in reality it's just complete lack of self-awareness. They're trying very hard to make Yasuke a complex character, when in reality he just comes across as a Mary Sue. He has no character flaws whatsoever. In fact, he's better than any Japanese character, even ones who've spent their entire lives training the ways of the samurai. He's also humble, wise, intelligent. There's even a part where you meet one of Naue's romances, and the dude can't fucking read, but Yasuke can. Yasuke can also swim in full armor, by the way. You know, there's certain shit I can suspend my disbelief for, but I think this is just a little bit too far. And as I pointed out when I covered the trailer a year ago, none of the dogs seem to be bothered by Yasuke. That dog be barking, dude. Every dog be barking. Every single dog, they catch even a whiff of Yasuke. Every fucking, literally the game be unplayable because all you hear is dogs barking the entire fucking time. So yeah, this is just yet another attempt of being like, oh, look at this black guy. He's so friendly and harmless, but he's also a strong, brave warrior, and he's sticks with his friends, and he didn't do nothing. And those evil Portuguese slaver Jesuit Christians, they're the bad guys. And none of the Japanese people are racist against him either. I mean, can you imagine if you've never seen an African in your fucking life, and then all of a sudden this, like, 6'3" black guy walks up to you? You don't think they'd react, like, at least a little bit? It genuinely was fucking with my immersion. They don't have to, like, literally be throwing slurs at him, but they should be at least, like, shocked.
Is Yasuke?
He's black. Oh, and I suppose I feel an obligation to inform you about the microtransactions. If you've watched my channel for long enough, you probably already know how I feel about things like this. Yes, microtransactions are terrible, and they objectively make games worse in pretty much every case. But at the same time, I feel like this problem wouldn't exist if people weren't fucking idiots. Yes, Ubisoft is to blame for putting them in the game in the first place, especially when it's shit so ridiculous like $20 for skins. It's legitimately gotten that bad, dude. In a single-player game, who the hell are you even showing this shit to? But honestly, if you ask me, the real bad shit is the resource packs. You know, the type of stuff you use for crafting or building up your base or buying the in-game currency. There's even a pack that costs $10 that all it does is reveal everything on the map. The most offensive part of this by far is the ridiculous prices, man. It's a $70 game for the whole experience, which I've never been the type of guy who believes, oh, we should get an hour of gameplay per dollar spent. That's ridiculous. But the point is, you are getting a shit ton of content, even though it's low quality content. But then you can just casually drop $20 to make your character look cooler, or $10 on in-game resources that you'll spend in 5 minutes. That's the shit that's truly egregious. But anyway, to get back to the point I was saying at the beginning of this segment, I don't think microtransactions are the biggest concern in video games. I would certainly say politics are considerably worse, because those things affect everybody. All it takes to ignore microtransactions is some self-control, and while yes, I would agree that a lot of times games are designed around these, especially when you can buy EXP boosters or resource packs, but at the same time, I would just say avoid these shitty repetitive games anyway. Even if the microtransactions weren't there, this game would still be mediocre. So anyway, back to the normal review. And look, to explain some of the other ridiculous stuff, I gotta get a little bit into the story. You may be wondering why I didn't really talk about Naue that much as a character, and that's because she really doesn't have much of one. She's a female ninja, and she's also an assassin. And she wants revenge for her family getting slaughtered, specifically her father, by like this group of evil samurai. And that scene is just cheesy as hell. I realize it's trying to be like a spaghetti western type of thing, but it was such tonal whiplash from the stuff that came before. Naue ends up just barely surviving, and she gets rescued by a monk and this fat kid. And the shit they do with the fat kid is a little bit unsettling. Let's just say one of the female writers was into straight Shota, and I'll just leave it at that. I was honestly torn between it being kind of funny and kind of cringy at the same time, sort of like, you know, a kid being attracted to their much older babysitter. But this fucking fat kid has like way more significance in the story than he ever should be, but we'll get into that a little bit later. As for Yasuke's intro, it shows how he's brought before Nobunaga by the Portuguese slavers, the Jesuits. And for absolutely no reason that makes even a lick of sense, Yasuke can understand them speaking Japanese, and this impresses Nobunaga. No, it's not the fact that there's just this huge black guy, which in and of itself would be really interesting, given that nobody there has seen someone like him before. No, that's not good enough. He magically has to be able to understand and speak Japanese. So as is explained over the course of an over-hour-long flashback mission later in the game, he's taken under Nobunaga's wing. He's taught to be the greatest samurai ever by this old dude. And his sensei literally says he is the most promising student that he's ever taught. I'm sure his other students have been training the ways of the samurai for years, but Yasuke trains for 1 month, and he's the greatest student of all time. And man, this shit wants to be a movie so fucking bad, man. Not only is like 80% of this flashback sequence a series of long cutscenes, it does like every single story beat you've seen from a movie where he gets his ass beat in the beginning, then a bunch of dudes bully him, then he starts to learn how to fight with the sword. I think he ends up killing those 3 later. I wasn't exactly paying attention to see if it was the same 3 guys, but I'm assuming it was. And he proves himself to Lord Nobunaga. And there's a lot of like weird, not so subtle, feels like gay implications between Nobunaga and Yasuke. I don't know if this is cut content from an earlier version of the game where they didn't care about offending Japan, but some of this shit gets zestier than Kingdom Come too, I'm telling you. Which is ironic because one of Yasuke's love interests is Nobunaga's sister, which is so unbelievably fucked. I can't even believe they're getting away with that. So just like Musa, they unironically played into the fucking blacked meme. I can't believe this shit is actually showing up in video games. I mean, I guess I can believe it because I know who's pushing it and why, but it is absolutely unreal. And it doesn't even feel like a coincidence either that for both Musa and Yasuke, they slept with royalty. These are random ass Africans with Yasuke literally being a fucking slave. This is fucking disgusting. I could just imagine the rubbing hands behind the scenes. It's probably the only thing in this game that genuinely kind of made me angry when I learned about it. The rest is too stupid and over the top to be taken seriously, especially since everything is just like smothered in this like millennial white woman writing. Boom! Get fucked! That's what Lilith Takeshi gets! Oh, that's such a shitty reference. Instead of this is Sparta, it's like,
This is Japan, actually. Actually, we're in Japan right now.
wow, wasn't that a funny achievement name? You're fired. No, you're not just fired, I'm executing you. The humor is so fucking bad, dude, and some of it's really out of touch. There's a quest where you have to choose what the better watermelon is, and you can actually do this with Yasuke. Unfortunately, I didn't. I'd already completed the quest with Naue by the time I got to play as him. Woke doesn't even begin to describe some of this shit, but like this game is just the perfect example of what's wrong with left-wing politics, where it simultaneously feels like shit that's more racist than a neo-Nazi would make, but it also goes in the complete opposite direction where it's just like kissing their fucking feet, and it's just so vile. I don't even think black people like this stuff because it just comes across as overly pandering and just disgusting. I mean, it's not like Yasuke acts like any black guy you've ever met in your life. Certainly not in my case. He acts like the cartoon liberal idea of what the perfect black man is. And, you know, in some ways that's more racist than what the skinhead thinks. I'm not gonna go into a diatribe about like, oh, leftists are the real racists or anything, but I don't know. This shit is just extremely tiresome. Can it please die? But anyway, to get back to the story, so after Yasuke becomes the ultimate samurai, this is where we kind of wrap back around to the intro. Yasuke leads the charge in slaughtering the Iga clan, which is, you know, the ninja clan Naoe is from. And Yasuke gets this special boss fight against this fucking boomer who's supposed to be the greatest ninja. It's literally just like a 60-year-old man with a chain sickle. And that boss fight is so lazy. He just recycles the attack animations that Naoe has with her weapon, including the special attack. This game has like a budget of at least $200 million, and they can't even afford to give boss fights unique attack animations. God, that's embarrassing, but maybe not as embarrassing as the dialogue in the cutscene afterward.
You're special, samurai. Not for your skin, for your skill.
And so the reason I explain this is, once we get back to Naoe after the intro, she's healed up, she gets her revenge on 2 of the targets who helped kill her dad. We end up helping out Mitsuhide, which I guess if you know Sengoku period history, then you realize where this is going. We end up making this huge assault on where Nobunaga is having like a tea party or some shit. We end up getting a 1v1 boss battle against him as Naoe while the building is burning, which is kind of cool, I guess. But then there's like a 5-minute fucking conversation where Naoe realizes, no, Nobunaga is not the reason for her father to get killed. And we almost get like a boss fight where it's Naoe versus Yasuke, which actually would have been cool, but no, they don't do that because this game sucks. And I know this might be nitpicking, but the fact that they're having this really long conversation in a burning building in an enclosed room and no one has problems breathing, especially not Yasuke Floyd over here. At the end, Naoe just ends up leaving because Nobunaga commits Sudoku. And notably, Yasuke is the one who decapitates him afterward. Then we get a little bit of a flash forward and we find out that the fat kid has gotten lost somewhere. And this is just bait for Yasuke to show up and just like slaughter a fuck ton of people while some incredibly unfitting music plays. What the fuck is this music, man? It's the song of his people. And then we have our big showdown between the 2 heroes who are on opposite sides because she learns that Yasuke is the one who killed her family and friends, but they have to end up making peace anyway. You want to know why? Because the fat kid says, revenge is bad. If you kill your enemies, they win, and you're just as bad as them. No joke, this fat kid goes on this long monologue about how forgiveness is the way, and Naoe's the one who killed his dad in the beginning. Haha, plot twist, wow. And yet he forgave her, which I'm pretty sure we all know the real reason why. Yeah, and then he got horny, and then he forgave her. There you go, I figured it out. And dude, I know I'm like derailing again, but the voice acting in this game is fucking dog shit. I know a bunch of people have already pointed this out, especially like Naoe is one of the 2 main characters, yet they pick what feels like a random woman off of Fiverr to voice one of the main characters of the game.
This Egan tradition, going back as far as anyone can remember. This bonds us.
What will we call ourselves?
My father told me to follow this blade, that I would find my way.
Dude, the voice acting's so bad, it hurts, dude. And like half the accents sound like racist Japanese accents. Whatever, anyway, getting back to the point, despite the fact that Yasuke like murdered all of her friends, they have to work together to stop the real evil or something. Dude, this shit's trash. It's just straight up fucking trash, man. And I only played, I'd say, about 5 more hours after this part. And it's not like the game ever gets any more interesting. This entire plot just centers around getting your revenge on the people who killed your father and getting a box that belonged to the assassins. And I realize this is far from the first and no doubt far from the last story that centers around some MacGuffin, but this one is just so boring. Like, I have almost no reason to care about what's happening. It's not like the storytelling's good, the characters aren't good, the voice acting isn't good, the cutscene direction isn't good. Why should I care about anything? And there's one other thing I want to talk about, since there's not really any point in having a woke section. Yasuke is enough woke for easily an entire game, but I do want to point out that there's an Abby in this game, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, from The Last of Us 2, Abby. Yet another disgusting giant muscle girl. It is crazy that DEI keeps pushing for this shit. I understand why. It's to subtly, in your brain, influence how you view men and women. That, oh, maybe women can be just as strong, if not stronger than men. But why do they always make them so fucking disgusting? This is literally an obese Japanese woman's head on a giant man's body. Like, holy hell, what is this? Between The Last of Us 2, Immortals of Avium, Street Fighter 6, and now Assassin's Creed Shadows, we've got practically a whole Avengers team of Abbies. And I'm sure there's other games that have them too that I haven't even played. I just wish they weren't so disgusting. I hate to say it, but if they were hot, I probably would just let it slide. And before we get to the conclusion, I went ahead and looked up the ending because I knew I would never finish this game. And the final boss for Naoe's side is Hattori Hanzo, yes. The legendary samurai referred to as a demon, an expert tactician, a master of sword fighting, is defeated by a woman. And if you think that's bad, well, Yasuke's is actually significantly worse than this. Yasuke ends up getting revenge on the Portuguese slaver who killed his mother. And yeah, there is, let's say, quite a bit of anti-white sentiment here, but I guess it's fine because, you know, slavery is horrible and all that, and I guess he's a Templar, and Templars are the bad guys. Either way, you could feel there was quite a bit of hatred in these cutscenes just by watching them. Oh, and the final boss fight has more of that traditional African music playing that just sounds weird as fuck. So yeah, that's Assassin's Creed Shadows. No, you shouldn't buy it, obviously. Nobody should give a single fucking dime to Ubisoft under any circumstances. They need to die. This was their last chance to save Assassin's Creed. People have been asking for an Assassin's Creed in Japan for, I don't know, well over a decade, and then Ubisoft kind of missed their chance when Ghost of Tsushima came out. And yeah, that's like the very obvious alternate recommendation from this video. Just play Ghost of Tsushima instead. Hell, if you don't want to play a shitty-ass sandbox game, you could just play some linear ninja game. Maybe play Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, which is ironic because I know people in my chat really want me to live stream that and the first Ninja Gaiden Black. Maybe play Metal Gear Rising, even though that's a sci-fi samurai slash ninja game, but it's awesome, as I'm sure you already know. Another good suggestion is Neo, which I know is going to piss off Twitter types because they kept bringing it up every time people were discussing Yasuke with this game. But William Adams was an actual white guy who became a samurai in Japan. He has much more accolades than Yasuke by comparison. And at least in that game, it has no pretense of being historically accurate. You're killing demons and shit. And I remember liking the game quite a bit. Not as much as Souls games, but, you know, still, definitely a good game. And before someone asks, no, I haven't played Neo 2 yet, but maybe I will at some point. I've heard Yasuke's even in that one. Honestly, the amount of ninja or samurai games you could be playing instead of this are endless. It's just that, for one reason or another, there is a crowd for these giant, empty sandbox chore games. People want to do the same thing over and over and over again for dozens of hours. Why? Who the hell knows? But every time I hear people talk about how they have, like, their stoner friend or maybe their dad play these time-wasted games, I don't know, it makes me just feel kind of sad. Imagine spending your time on this piece of shit instead of something actually good. Thankfully, I think the cow that is the Assassin's Creed IP has been thoroughly milked dry. The player numbers don't lie. People just don't give a fuck about this series anymore, especially because of the huge controversy when this was revealed. So I can only hope that Ubisoft goes bankrupt. Sorry if this review is even more sloppish than usual, but I just wanted to quickly get my thoughts out on it. I don't think this is really worth a super deep analysis. It's the same shit you've already played several times by now. And Ubisoft games are kind of hard to talk about in general because they're not completely objectively terrible, but they're definitely not good either. They're just incredibly bland and repetitive. And I can only say that so many times before, well, it just becomes a pointless review. I'm just repeating myself every single time I make one of these videos. Just stay away from these games. Play like literally anything else. That's all you got to do. All right, that's about it. See you next time, guys.